All right, all right, all right. It's your boy Jason, aka the Dad Next Door, and this is the Dad Next Door show. Got a really exciting guest coming up right next. This is a guy who Grant Cardone called not once but twice the smartest guy in the room, and he always gets a kick out of that, and we do too, who actually are into that joke. But I'm not going to talk too much about it right now. I'm going to get started. So stay tight, hang out, stay there for a second. We want to introduce the show, and then you get to meet my next guest, Trey. See you in a second. Be right back.
Fatherhood. It's how we keep our tribes and families strong. You've landed in the right place if you're ready for dad jokes, tips, and tricks on fun parenting. Also with interviews with some of the coolest dad entrepreneurs we can track down and have them share their strategies to tackling it all in business and life on the Dad Next Door. And now, your host, Mr. Dad Jokes himself, Jason Centeno.
Hi, Nana. They don't show you in action because things like this. Oh, fix it. Oh, man, I'm sorry about that intro. I was a little mush mouth coming in. I guess I should have drank a little bit more water before I started that. But thank you, Trey. You deserve more respect than that. The smartest guy in this room, I'm telling you right now. So
I appreciate that, man. Good to see you. I love that intro, man. It's cool.
Well, I'm glad that you loved it. So we're gonna get into this real quick. So you are probably you are definitely one of the smartest people I know. It's funny how we became friends. Let me ask you something. Were you in that van when we all jumped in it and we went to dinner together? Did I stuff you in the minivan? Was that?
No, I met you guys over there, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear that story though? It was like 12 of us in a minivan.
I was there when they opened the door and that you guys kept piling out. It was like Rosales, and then it was you, and it was all these guys just piling out of it, you know?
Who was I stuck someone in the back. It was funny. Like he was laying across the back. I'm trying to remember who it was, but that was
the Indian brother. What was his name? The Indian brother.
I know you're talking about now. I see, he also does, he buys companies too, right? App companies or something like that. Yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about. I just forgot his name because it's not an easy
me
one.
Too.
But so yeah, man. I'm gonna start this off kind of with a strange question. A family office. This is one of those things that it sounds so deceptively simple, right? But for people who don't know anything about the financial industry, the insurance industry, I've never read that Tony Robbins book about wealth or just any books that really deep dive on, I guess, wealth principles and, who takes care of rich people's money. A family office, when you hear that, you're like, well, what is that? Is that like a doctor's office or something like that? Can you explain to people really quick, because this is what you do? Tell them what you do, because this is part of your entrepreneur story. So I want to explain that part real quick.
So a family office is just a choice that a family makes on how they're going to manage generational wealth, right? And so what we have decided as a family, and some other families who have lots more than we have, we're just following their model and watching what they do and do that. You take those decisions in-house, right? So what are you going to invest in? How are you going to hold your wealth? How are you going to allow members of the family to borrow money from the family or to receive, inheritance and all those kinds of things? We're just centralizing that as if it were a company, that we are the sort of CEOs and shareholders of the company. So really what we've done is we've taken the family and the wealth created by the family and turn that into something that we are all shareholders. We use the term stakeholders in. And so we are managing right now for 4 generations of my family, my grandfather, my parents, my generation. And we have just last week onboarded the first member of the next generation, the 4th generation. My niece turned 18, and we are prepping her onboarding so that she will now see what is it that we own and how do we treat money and what do we do in these situations and that sort of thing. So it's just a choice. You don't have to do it this way. You can go get a Morgan Stanley account and they can do some investments there. And, your mom can have her money separate than your money and those kinds of things. It's lots of people do it lots of different ways, but we're trying to build that for the next 3 generations coming up.
So you're saying that there's an onboarding process for the young people in your family, like literally like a guidebook on how we keep generational wealth going. Like, hey, here's the book. We talk about, I guess, we discussed it real quick earlier, but like the concept of infinite banking, like borrowing from yourself, insurance policies, so that all the interest you pay over your lifetime, say for your house or your car, it's, what is it, 30 to 40% of your income throughout your whole life is paid on interest. So how to kind of recapture that, because if you're able to do that, then you're basically, becoming your own banks, stuff like that. I mean, you're taking her through it.
That's right. So the first thing that we will do, because she's 18 and she doesn't know anything about money or anything of that, that type, we will acquaint her with what it is that we own, right? And what are her rights as a stakeholder in the family. And then when she goes through college and she gets out of college, at some point she'll be presented the choice. Do you want to be a stakeholder in the family, and this is what that means? Or do you want to go your own way and you don't have to be? If you want to be a stakeholder, then you get certain privileges and access and that sort of thing, but you have obligations that go along with that. And
Such as, like that, that's the part I want to hear. So you're offered to become a stakeholder in this family business, this corporation, so to speak. You are now obligated to, like, say we get an insurance policy on you, the corporation is insured. Does she pay it or does the family pay it?
It depends, but the family office would pay that on one level. And then if she wanted to have any of that benefit flow to husband, spouse, anything like that, she might opt to do some additional insurance. And I think we all do that as well. But the obligations are, the privileges are financial largely, and the obligations are familial, so it's like, you help out when people need help. Right. And that's part of what being a member of the family means. So that if she starts a business and gets sick, then some member of the family is probably going to step in and help her run that business. It means the obligations are, if you take investment from the family, you have to come and report that investment to everybody in the family. You will have family as literal shareholders of the business. That's an obligation. It's an obligation you may not want to take on, right? So it's fuzzy, and we're still figuring our way through it. Our family office is 18 months old.
So does she have to come with a business plan, or is it like if she wants to borrow money to start a business, she has to go through similar to a loan process, except it's the family loaning it? She has obligations. She's insured against loss. If she loses it, like, there's really no downside because she's insured against it. Like, all those kind of things are set up. Does she have to come with an idea, or is it kind of like, well, when you're ready, this is what you can get on board with? Because I'm just trying to figure out, like, why would a person choose to do that if their thoughts were like, oh, I just want to be a nurse or something like that? Like, how do you?
And that may be a thing, right? So the privilege that she may call on is, I'm going to be a nurse. I want help with my tuition for nursing school. And when I get out of nursing school, I want some help so that I don't have to work 40 hours a week. I want to work a little bit less than that. And so, maybe I want to buy a house and I don't want to pay, this is a bad example in this market, of course, but maybe I don't want to pay 3%. I want to pay 2% interest or something of that nature. That's always something that's possible. The thing about it with generational wealth that I think that people that have to come to an acquaintance of is this: we don't risk that wealth, right? It isn't risk capital. We make an investment and we de-risk that 8 ways from any way that we can potentially lose that money, right? The first sin of family wealth is losing it. So it's, if she comes up and she says, I think I'm going to sell popsicles on the sidewalk in Detroit in the wintertime, right? Because I think my popsicles are delicious and it doesn't matter what time of year and people will love it. She's not getting that money.
They're craft popsicles, or whatever organic crafted, those words that they use now to sell, anything, just words. I got it. So that's an interesting, and that's how you came into the business too. Like, your father brought you in that same way. Ooh, looks like we got a frozen. All right, technical difficulty. 1 second. You still there?
I got you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was me or you, but it was gone for a minute.
Dropped off.
Yeah.
So like, to reiterate, did your father bring you in that same way?
My dad was pretty good about teaching us what it meant to grow up privileged. And he put a lot of the bricks on the road for us to execute to be more privileged. So he made sure that we had, like, I went to law school and I graduated without student loans, right? That's a huge deal because a lot of people walk around with student loans. My dad wasn't necessarily, super wealthy and would just write a check for that, but he made business decisions and he made investment decisions that paid that off in a way that then I could come out. My brother went a different path, but he said he had the same advantages of my dad really putting those things together. My grandfather was very entrepreneurial and started our core business and then taught us investing in other asset classes, specifically real estate. And so, we came to all of that. And then a lot of the liquidity events happened about 18 months ago. So we had a very big piece of beachfront real estate that sold that we had held for a long, long time. We lost a member of the family, which turned out to be liquidity for us. And one of the investments that I had made in a company very early on went public. And so we had a lot of liquid capital at that point. And so that's when we all decided as a family, let's come together and invest these pots of money together.
So I was going to ask you, does entrepreneurship run in your family? Because this is a family show. This is the dad next door.
Yeah.
How do you become an entrepreneur? And you're saying like your grandfather was kind of like, he was the guy who started this whole thing and got everybody kind of lined up.
Yeah, my grandfather did not finish the 9th grade. He was literally the son of a sharecropper, and he was a sharecropper himself. And he came home. He was just telling me this yesterday because I spent the day with him yesterday. And he came home one day and his mother had remarried, and he was living, with the stepdad, and the stepdad was angry about something, and he threw my grandfather out. Didn't even have shoes on his feet. Threw him out that night. He was 9th grade. He never went back, right? But he learned how did money work, and he figured those kinds of things out. And eventually he got into the insurance business, and he loved that business because as much effort and intelligence as he put into it, he could reclaim linearly, all of that value that he could create. He loved that. And he would take that money that he would make from selling somebody a policy that they needed, and he would give them good customer service and all those kinds of things. And if something went wrong, he would be there with the check to make sure that it got paid. And he took all the profits from that and he bought things that increased in value, mostly real estate. So he ran that business for 30 years. He sold it to my dad, didn't give it to him. He sold it to my dad. And my dad paid that off. And then my dad passed away unexpectedly, and my brother and I inherited the business. So that's how we came to the insurance business together. Now
that path you were on, so I'm gonna call attention to this. So I did read your book, very good. Now, yeah, I don't necessarily consider myself a CEO, but after hearing, you speak and your storytelling ability, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read this thing, and I definitely got a lot out of it, and I can see why people hire you to like turn their CEO business around. So, your path was, you were in law school, and then you said .com, and now you became a big part of the VC world, and then that happened with your father. I guess take us through that. Like, what was the path you were on, and then you kind of shifted, and then you're sort of on that path again, right? I mean, that's kind of
So my dad said, "Don't do what I do for a living. You're in sales. You're humping it every day. You start over at the beginning of every morning." Go do something else. Go get a profession. Go be a doctor or be a lawyer. Well, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, so it was a lawyer left over for me, and I loved it. I really wanted to do that for a living, and then I got to law school, and I hated every second of it. Absolutely hated every second of it. I hated law students. I hated law professors. I didn't want to do that for a living. I could tell.
Can I tell you something? So that was my path too. Believe it or not, I was. Yeah. Criminal justice pre-law, and something told me I wasn't going to like law either. So I kind of instead I went and took a paralegal training real quick, and I was like, let me try being a paralegal for a little while.
Yeah.
And I knew that after the first week, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't go and waste 3 years in school, because I was like, this is so boring. I was just like, I can't take it. So yeah, I feel you on that. But when you started,
so I went through half the first year, and I came home and I told my dad, I'm not going back. I hate it more than anything in the world. Like, they get into these discussions And it's not about getting an answer. And I can't live that way. It's just fundamentally in my DNA, I'm the guy that has the answers, and I could not live that way. And he said, well, look, you've already finished half the year. Why don't you go finish the other, at least finish, because we've already paid for it. Okay. So he tricked me into doing that. So then I came home, had everything I owned in the back of my car. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm not going back. You said I didn't have to. And he said, well, you've already done 1 year. You might as well do the other years, So he tricked me into it. So I got through with it. And then as I was coming out, it was the first internet bubble, so companies like AOL were mailing CDs everywhere. And, all this crazy stuff was going on. And the stock, you'd go public on Monday and it'd be worth a bunch of money on Tuesday and that sort of thing. And it was really attractive. And they were hiring law students like crazy. So instead of taking the bar, I went straight in-house, which was an advantage because I was a good negotiator. And I knew a lot of things. That I studied a lot of tax and transaction work. But if you're not licensed, you didn't have to tell anybody that you were. And so I was able to build a nice little corporate development career in-house. So I was one of the first employees at WebMD. I was one of the guys at Earthlink and MindSpring. That was a huge ISP at that point. It ended that phase of my career at AOL, where they had hired me to come in and sell off a bunch of the stuff that they had bought. So it's really sort of interesting career. And you would do a deal on Tuesday, and on Thursday it'd be the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And that was really validating to me. It made me feel great, and then I had a personal tragedy and had to leave that part of the career behind.
So you went and came into the family business, and you kind of, I don't want to say you winged it, but you felt you got dropped into something you had no idea how to do, but and that's why this book is great, because you kind of left a blueprint of how someone could come into something almost blind and what's the word I'm looking for? Inexperienced, and with the right heart and mindset, just turn it around and then really, really, really get good at it. But not only you didn't become good at the business itself, you just became really good at people and numbers, and let them do the business part like they should. And you just worried about what's the three things, the three things a CEO. I'm gonna have to look
culture, people, and numbers.
There you go. So
exactly. So when I came to the business, here's what I knew. I had so just for the listeners that don't know, I lost my dad, and he was 52 years old. He went on a vacation. He contracted what we now know is COVID. We didn't know what it was called back then, but he got COVID, and he died in a hospital room in Las Vegas. He was out there to visit family and have a good time, and we didn't get to bring him home that way. And so, my plan was very different, and had gone to AOL and had started that career. And the moving trucks were on the way to my house in Atlanta. They had bought my house in Atlanta. That's how bad they wanted me to move to Virginia. And the moving trucks were on the way, and I had to call them off and say, don't come, because I can't take the job. I got to go home and run the family business. So I walk in, and it was a good business. I had 20 really of the top professionals in the country in that side of the business worked for my family. And the one thing I knew was that there was no way I was going to know more than they did. It was not going to be possible. So if I didn't have, that's always my thing to do, is I'll go figure out everything that nobody else knows, and that's how I'll be successful. It wasn't possible in that case. So if I was going to be helpful in that environment, how did I do it? Well, I had to make things safe. I had to make everything safe for everybody, right? So that they could go out, they could do their work, those kinds of things. And how do I do that? The only thing I could come up with is I have to be the best CEO I can be. And I have to make things safe for people. I have to make sure they understand they've got a job. I have to make our clients understand that they are going to be well taken care of. I had to make the family understand that we were going to have enough money to live and pursue the dreams that were important to us, and those kinds of things. And so that became a really big deal. And I just started paying attention to people I thought were doing that job well. And I started taking notes. And what I came up with was that they were focused on three things, whether they knew it or said it in that way or not. They were focused on three things: culture, which is the ethical environment that you allow to exist around you. That's the number one thing that CEOs, who are really good CEOs, focus on.
So that already existed. It had a strong culture already, or so when you came in there, what was the first thing you hit? People, culture, or numbers? Which one did you?
The first thing I did was do everything wrong, right? Because of how do you know what to do? So I remember sitting in my dad's chair, and I felt like a little kid, dangling my feet in my daddy's chair, And I couldn't ever be as good as he was as what he did, because he grew up he never had another job. He was always in that business pretty much, and did it phenomenally. And he was a really big personality, and he knew how to make people feel good and relax around. I don't have those traits. It's not who I am. I have different traits, and it's okay. I'm okay with that. But what my team thought they wanted was a replacement for my dad. But what the business specifically needed was somebody who could go a little bit higher. And I spent 3 or 4 years in denial that it was okay for me to achieve more than my dad had achieved. And I had a great mentor. And he said, what you don't understand is that your dad put you in this place in life so that you can do more than he did. That's what we do for our sons. And I was like, of course. And so then we've been on a tear since then. You know, that was probably 12 years ago. We've had the best 12 years in that business and starting other businesses that we've ever had.
So what does your daily routine look like then, as far as, you know, this, I mean, you're a father. Let's get that out the way too. You got 2 children.
Yeah.
They're
Son
both,
and a daughter.
yeah. The sons, I mean, what are their ages again?
11 and 9.
Okay. So, let's say, like, let's dig into, like, you as a father, you know, social media wise. I mean, I do see you celebrate your wife and your kids a lot. So there's some definite family time in there, but, you know, you're running multiple companies. You're starting to get out more and do more, I guess, get out there more. I know you had a big deal that you're working on now. That's sort of that. And then you got this, you know, you're promoting this.
That was huge. Yeah.
So, how does your, like, daily routine look like with, you know, with your family and, you know, just being a dad? Like, how does that work?
So different than it did previously, right? So before pandemic, I was traveling and I was gone 140, 150 nights a year. I was consulting with companies in the insurance business. So agencies would hire me, their CEOs would hire me to come in and do the corporate planning, and then helping them with the execution and coaching the CEO, but also the second in charge as well, so that we got a really functional operational team in place to go after the plan that we put together. And it was really fun. And I had clients and, you know, in all kinds of interesting and cool places. And we did those things all over the place. Pandemic hits and it all stops. And so I'm home all the time, and I'm not good at not being busy. And so I sat down and figured out, I can do one of 2 things this year. I can go get my private pilot's license, which is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. But with pandemic, I don't know if they're even going to be doing that. Or I can finally get this book out that I've been trying to sort of hack around on and write. And so I sat down last year and wrote the book. And that's what it came out to be. Well, during that time, I hadn't been around my kids 24/7, you know, for the longest time. So I started really making time every day. And we re-architected our whole day. I think a big secret that people forget is that you can see your blank calendar every day, and you get to decide what you put on there. But most of us don't schedule ourselves. We schedule ourselves with other people. So if that's the case, why not look at the day? And this is what I did during the entire pandemic, is to say, from 8:30 to 9:30 every day, that's going to be time for me and nobody else, right? I have private devotion time, my religion, my faith. I have smart things that I want to read. I read poetry, which people giggle at. And I don't understand how people don't do that every day. I feed my soul and my mind for 1 hour every single day before I do anything else, right? At 9:30, I get in front of the computer and I do something that touches culture, people, and numbers before I open my inbox. So if I have to sit here and just plan it out, that's what I do first. And then I work until 12. I take from 12 to 2 off, and I do something with the family most of the time. Sometimes I'll have a business lunch or something, but lots of times I'll take my kids for burgers, whatever. And then from 2 to 4:30, I work on whatever the important project of the day is. And at 4:30, I am done, right? I'll take the occasional call, no problem. Like, I'm not a Nazi about it. But at 4:30, I change clothes. And at 6 o'clock, my wife and I sit by the pool. She makes the cocktail of the day, whatever it happens to be, which used to be a good idea before pandemic, but, you know, and we watch the kids play in the pool or chase the dog or something of that nature. So that's the perfect day. I don't hit that perfect day every day, but that's the perfect day of what it looks like.
Cocktail of the day. You sound like a madman James Bond kind of.
That's what I'm trying right there, you know.
Yeah. Wish I got a cocktail. I get a bag of chips thrown at me once in a while, but that's all right. So every once in a while, well, most guys, I like to do I call this it breaks up things a little bit, but it's rapid fire questions that I like to ask. So
yeah, hit me.
Yeah, and there's no wrong answer here, so just let me know what you think of these. Give me 1 second. I gotta find it. Okay. Yeah. All right. So use one word to describe your computer ability.
Decent. Like I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do those kinds of things, but like I live my life in a screen, so I can usually make it do what I want it to do. But most importantly, I know how to make other people make it do what I want it to do. Yeah.
Make it do what it do. Jamie Foxx. All right. Oh, I shouldn't even ask you this one. Damn. I'm gonna
give me an easy one. You hit me with the first one. Give me something easy.
This one's just you'll see. If your plane was about to crash, who would you want sitting next to you? And I hate to ask that question because we're talking about you getting your pilot's license right now.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad mojo. If it was going to crash, I wouldn't want anybody sitting next to me.
There you go. You're not a selfish guy.
Yeah, I want those guys to be at home. But if we were going down together, I'd want everybody to be there. Yeah.
Well, you could always say, Jesus, take the wheel. I think he counts.
Yeah, I guess I could choose. If I had an enemy, I'd want the enemy to sit next to me. I guess that'd be their best answer. Yeah.
His initials JT by any chance? No, I'm just kidding. All right. I know you know this one. You're probably not going to have a hesitation on this. Which of the presidents was your favorite?
I think Reagan was my favorite president. Reagan taught me how to think about politics in the way that I still wish were true in this country. When I wanted to explain to my kids yesterday what Memorial Day was, I started trying, and then I thought, why am I doing this work? I know for a fact that Reagan has done this already. I Googled a YouTube, Reagan speech about Memorial Day. Boom, there it was. We watched it as a family, and he did a better job than I could. He taught me how to think, and I'm a conservative, but he taught me how to think about political issues in a way that was very helpful to me. I have a book in production right now. That's one of the books that I'm playing around with. So you write a little bit and figure out what's going to come up, and that's one of them. Is what I believe as a conservative in this country.
That's the book you're writing about Reagan, or about your beliefs?
I'm playing with that right now. I happen to believe, I don't want to get political on your show, of course. I happen to believe that if you believe something, you should be able to explain to other people why. You should be able to compete in the arena of ideas. Okay. My people happen to be conservatives, and I don't think conservatives do a good job at doing that. I also don't think liberals do a good job at doing it either. But those are not my people. That's not my audience. So what I'm trying to do is to see, can I get those ideas to come out in a way that people could read the book and say, this is what we're about. This is what we're supposed to believe. And this is how we give voice to that belief. And that comes from Reagan, a mentorship of Reagan that I had.
At least you have a good, concise picture of what you want. So that's cool.
Yeah.
How long of a consecutive time have you spent in a car?
The longest drive I've ever done is 10 hours. I drove from Jacksonville, Florida to New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got 18, I think, is mine. What's your favorite Halloween costume?
My dad, when we were kids, had this lizard mask, and he was the Swamp Thing or something of that nature. And I love that Halloween costume. I'm not a Halloween guy, but I love that Halloween costume because that mask eventually ended up in our attic. And I could take that mask and put it on, and my brother would just scream bloody murder. Like he was just so terrified of the mask. And then I could take it off, and he would stop, and I'd put it back on, and he would be scared instantly again. And before he passed away, I spent hours trying to find a copy of that mask or anything that looked as scary as that mask, just so I could scare him one last time with it. So when you say my favorite Halloween costume, well, it wasn't even mine. It was my dad's costume.
Yeah, but you got a lot of good chuckles out of it. So that's
right.
I think mine was a homemade Darth Vader costume. Yeah, I think my dad made it for me, and it was looking pretty good. And we couldn't afford the real one, but I was like, you know what, this is pretty sweet, and I like.
I was always a wizard or a superhero, right? But not like Superman, like whatever dude that I made up. So that was what I always was, you know. I mean, for like 7 years, and I celebrated Halloween until I was like 18. You know, I was the kid going out with, and I wasn't mischievous. I was going out to get the candy and that kind of thing, you know.
I'm all about the costumes. I still do it now if I can.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I think I have way too many costumes in my garage still. I got 22 Mexican wrestler masks. So next time you come, maybe I'll bring them to the thing and let's see how many people we can get in a brawl inside of that hotel.
Yeah, I bet we could get them stirred up, man.
Trinity Blue match. All right. So all right, back to the more serious stuff. So as a dad, what do you think your superpower is as far as with your children? You know, what do you do better than any other? Well, what are you like most proud of your ability to do with your kids? I guess that would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I have a belief that we're created in 3 dimensions. It's in the book. You've seen it. We're created in an intellectual dimension, in the emotional dimension, and then also in an identity dimension. We parent our kids in the identity dimension. So the best thing that we do is say to them, we believe this. We act in this way. I give them their identity on a daily basis, so that I don't have to be around them for them to know that it's wrong to tell a lie, right? I don't tell them that. I tell them we don't tell lies. We don't feel it necessary to lie about the truth in order to get what we want, those kinds of things. And so I really believe that my gift for my kids is to speak to them at that identity dimension so that it expands and it grows and that sort of thing. We made a very hard decision last year with pandemic coming that we weren't going to have the kids be in a school setting where they were forced to mask all day long and, you know, just really be kind of miserable about that. And again, I'm not preaching to anybody else. I'm just saying that it wasn't comfortable for us to do that for our kids because we wanted no fear to be in their identity. So we make very identity-based parenting decisions. And I think that's kind of the superpower that I have there.
Kind of goes back to culture too. I mean, that we are this. So you're instilling that from a young age.
That's exactly it.
So any of the two of them want to be like, do what daddy do yet or anything like that? You know, entrepreneurial spirit or not yet?
It's interesting. So we, of course, I've already read to them, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's a board game called Cash Flow. We play that. You know, they love it. They understand.
The one for kids or the adult version?
No, we play the adult version. They all get their cash flow calculators on their iPad and they show up. They show up to win, baby. I mean, they get competitive. Like when I was a kid, we played Monopoly. Well, we're too good for Monopoly now, man. We play in cash flow because I want my kids to understand those principles. But the funny thing is my daughter is very opinionated. She's extremely independent. She's bossy. Somebody might call her bossy, but she has leadership qualities and those things. And we say to her, like, you're going to be the CEO of the family. And she gets furious about that. And she says, you don't get to tell me who I am. I only will tell me who I am, you know, which is exactly what a CEO would say anyway. And so that's our favorite game, probably, is aggravating my daughter about becoming the CEO.
So so we talked about like dad's superpower. So what would you say your dad kryptonite would be with your children? You know, whatever you struggle the most with in dealing with them.
Yeah, I think it comes from a good place, but we're overindulgent, you know, with the kids. So I don't like telling them don't do something. I like explaining to them why they shouldn't and then letting them live with the consequences of the decision. But some decisions they can't comprehend. And so, you know, sitting around watching and playing games all day long, they would literally do that for the rest of their lives until they just dissolved, you know. And I think we're a little too overindulgent for that. And a lot of that comes from me wanting them to make their own choices and be independent. But you do also have to understand that you don't always have the right ability to make the right choice and the good choice that you can't see yet. So I think if I have a kryptonite, it's that I'm a little soft on the kids. They think I'm very strict, but I'm a little soft on the kids.
So to clarify that, when you say we are overindulgent, is it you? Because I want to say that I'm very similar to what you just said. Meaning that I like to say, you can do that. Just remember that this is what's going to happen. Now, when it happens, they seem to have this very short-term memory about what I just told them was going to happen.
Right.
And so then it becomes this, I don't consider it overindulgent. I mean, so this segues into the next point. Like when you're angry with your kids, how do you handle that? In a case like this, you tell them this is what's going to happen if you do this thing or you don't do this thing. And they go and do it 30 seconds later. Like they never heard you in the first place. And then for me, that somebody's getting angry, whether it's them for being punished or for me having to remind them that I just told them that 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
That's something that you deal with too, as far as this overindulgence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like they go together. It's like you give them a shot and the only part they hear is the part that they can do it. They don't hear the rest of it. And then, oh no, what happens now? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I think really highly of my kids too. So when I tell them, if you do this, you're just going to get a bloody nose, and then they do it and get a bloody nose, then I'm thinking, wow, I thought really highly of you and you'd make the right decision, but you made the wrong decision. And now I don't think highly of you. You know, I make a joke of it sometimes, but I let them know, like, this is disappointing. We had this issue last night when I tucked my daughter in. I knew there was an iPad in that room, right? And I said, where's your iPad? We need to take it and put it up in the front of the house so that you don't watch YouTube all night long. And she said, why don't you ever just trust me? And I said, you know what? That's a fair point. So I'm going to trust you. Do you promise me that you won't watch iPad all night long at all? You don't touch iPad at all. I promise that. Okay. When I got up this morning at midnight till 11 o'clock, when I saw her for the first time this morning after my time and I had a meeting, when I came back at 11 o'clock, she had watched 11 hours of YouTube. Right. And I said to her, I took the iPad away. She doesn't get it back. She loses it for a week now. But I said to her, I'm disappointed in the choice that you made. You're the one that set the stage. You're the one that manipulated the response. And you're the one that you knew the entire time that you intended to watch YouTube all night long, like 11 hours of YouTube. That's not good. That's not good for you. And it's because you're not able to make that choice. I'll make that choice for you now. And it's like a concentration camp in here now. I mean, she's as miserable as she can be. It's the worst day of her entire life. Because she's tired, because she watched TV all night long, and she doesn't get her way. And so, we just have to hold that line. And it's miserable for us.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. And, sometimes I'm just like, I just have to mix it up. It's like, okay, you don't have the iPad, but now do some push-ups or something, like, just to get get all that anger and energy out. You gotta give them something else to do. But there's no rhyme or reason for sometimes. It's just I like to mix it up. So yeah. I get it with that overindulgent thing, because I think it's because we're male, we're logical creatures, and we think, yeah, they're gonna put this 2 and 2 together, and they never do. And it's like, don't do that, or you're gonna fall off your bike and get a bloody knee. And then you do that, and then you got a bloody knee. And then I'm saying to you, see, remember that feeling, because that's what's gonna happen every time if you don't listen to me. And then 2 weeks later, while they're picking on their scab and saying why it's itching and why does it look like that, I say, remember what I told you last time? This is the result. See how that works? And then they get mad about it, but it's like, look, I'm just trying to get you to follow the chain of results here. Hopefully you can put
and I'm sure I did the same thing to my parents. Like, there's no way that I'm doing this and I didn't do this to my parents too. And I don't know that I learned it, until I had kids. So it may be a total waste of time for me to try to teach it, but it just feels like the right thing to teach.
Nothing clicks for them until after 25. I think that's when the brain's supposed to fully develop. Like,
maybe that's it.
Like, okay, now I get it.
If I could have them learn one thing that I wish I had learned earlier in my life is that actions have consequences, right? Maybe they're positive, maybe they're negative, but I wish if kids could understand that earlier, that they would see that. And maybe I'm just not giving them enough consequences to make them understand it.
See, and here's the thing about that, right? Man, this is one of those these difficult discussions that I have with other people that disagree with me on certain things. And I'm like, look, if everything is, no matter what, if they do something good or if they do something bad, if the consequence is always the same, because this is, I'm a pastor's kid. So sometimes I felt like no matter what I did, I was damned if I did and I was damned if I didn't. So I might as well do it because I'm going to get punished anyway. And people don't realize like that's what you got to stop a kid from doing, because then they learn, yes, there's consequences, but there's some consequences that I'm just willing to take because the upside is the same anyway. It's like I get the same result. I get yelled at whether I do or I don't, or I'm suspicious or I'm called a liar. So I might as well just, and it's not good to develop that because, that's a downward slope with everything. I mean, then you will rationalize every bad thing that you do because you'll just, you'll give meaning to that and you'll think like that's how it is going to be for the rest of your life. But it's one of those things that I have it out with my wife about is because like if there's no upside for them listening, or if there's always just terror and disbelief, and no matter what you do, you're going to be wrong, then why be right? Like ever? There's just no upside to it, right? So that's one of those very sticky situations to navigate as they're growing up. I try to do my best, but like I said, you got to have two people on board with that one, and sometimes people disagree.
That's true, and no spouses are ever aligned on that, right? We always try to marry the opposite, in a lot of situations, and so my wife has a totally different. I mean, she will tell them up front, one time, and then she doesn't ever say it again to them at all, right? And so that makes it difficult. Not to criticize her parenting at all; she'll have opinions on my parenting, I'm sure, but it isn't the consistency that I think kids really need. Kids really need consistency. And that's important. Kids need praise. So we praise our kids. We praise them to other people. We praise them, hey, just want to let you know, Dad's really proud of how you handled that thing today, that kind of thing. And I tell my kids I love them every single day of the year. They're never going to wonder if Dad loves them or not. And I literally say, I'll stop in the middle of a traffic jam and say, Dad loves you, kids, and they, oh, Dad, you're so ridiculous in saying that. My daughter says, we know you tell us all the time. There's going to be a day that I can't tell them anymore, and I don't want them not to know that. So that's why I do it in that way. Consistency.
Well, that I can say we do around here. I get tackled with I love yous at least 4 times a day from each one of them, to the point where I got to watch my knees sometimes because they're just like, you know what I mean? But good, that'll end one day, so I'm not complaining.
One of the guys that I used to know, we're not friends anymore, but or we just don't know each other anymore. But he said to me, at one period in your life when you're parenting, it'll be the last time that you ever picked your kid up. It'll be the last time that you ever tucked him into bed. It'll be and you don't know. Nobody ever knows those things. And so that's why you have to really keep that sweetness alive all the time. I think about that all the time. Is this the last time?
I just had that with my daughter like 2 days ago. Pick me up, and she's getting heavy and big, and I'm like, and I picked her. I was like, well, you know what? I can still do it, so let me do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Little I'm calculating. I'm like, how many more times am I going to be able to do this? So
my son the other night he's 11. He wanted to sleep with us. He's huge. He's bigger than my wife and I in the bed, and he's not a good sleeper. So he kicks us and, he snores and all this kind of stuff. And my wife's like, you got to be kidding me. And I said, at some point, he's never going to want to do this again. So I was all snuggled up to him and enjoying it because I can see that. I can see that at some point it's not going to be that way again. Yeah.
Just good that we always do remember that there's always a last time for one of these things. But yeah, I will say that is one of the more valuable lessons that I have learned over time from other people, is that there is a last time for a pickup, last snuggle, all that stuff. You just get to.
And Jason, one thing I love about you, man, is that you have the same philosophy of engaged dadism. It's like the active pursuit of being a dad. And I am amazed. I have friends, they didn't change a diaper. Like, they don't know their kids' friends. And I'm not criticizing them, right? It's not criticism. It is true compassion that they're missing. The greatest, sweetest blessing in my life has been the ability to be a dad to my kids. And my dad died at 52. I'm 47. So maybe I only have 5 more years. If that's the case, I want all of that I can get while I'm here. And I love that about you too. You're an active dad. I can tell that. Yeah.
Thank you. So here's an odd one. So what's one weird or funny thing that most people don't know about you?
A couple of things. So I drink wine, but my knowledge of wine is stupid and obsessive. So I know what grapes go into what wines. I know how long they were aged in oak. I mean, just a bunch of useless, completely useless, snobby.
You're a closet sommelier is basically what you're saying.
So I'm actually a sommelier. So I have a level 2 sommelier status. So I really am that. The other thing is I just know all the historical stuff. I just know a ton of useless historical stuff. So I can tell you all the kings, of kings and queens of England all the way back to 1066. I mean, just ridiculous, stuff that serves no purpose for anybody but me. And you look it up today. You don't even do that. My kids don't even look things up on Google. They just ask Siri or Alexa what the answer is. So for me, I love doing that. Another thing, I read 100 books a year, and I've done that for 22 years now. This will be my 22nd year doing that. From 99 on, I've done that. And I think that makes me a little bit different than some folks.
100 different books, or do you reread some of these?
I do reread, and I do count them when I reread them because it's still me reading something. I also will read enough of a book to understand the argument in the book, because most books should be magazine articles, right? You should write a really good magazine article and be done with it, which is, 14 pages instead of 220 pages that you do because the publisher said you needed to do that. So I read enough of a book, I speed read a book, and I get enough of it to understand what the point of the book is. But I try to do 100 books a year.
And your third, I guess your third profession is secret history professor, because every time I see one of your speeches, what was the first one? Caesar. The second one's Napoleon. So you do bring history to life, and in some of the most definitely in the environment that you don't expect them.
It blows me away that people don't love history like I do. And so if I can tell you a story in a way and make it a real thing and not some boring thing that you had to learn in junior high school or something, that's a real thrill for me. So I always have a point that I want to bring an audience, and it's, hey, be a better dad, right? But if I just get up there and do that, I'm preaching. And people like to be preached at for 1 hour on Sundays by this guy that they've chosen to be their preacher, not some random short guy that shows up and says, you should believe what I believe. So if I put that inside a story and say, here's the intellectual journey to get there, it's really easy. I just happen to know a lot of history, so it's easy for me to put the history story in there. And that's the secret to how I write my speeches.
And it's good because like I said, it makes you memorable because you're bringing in something. What's the word? It's almost like sometimes how people spoken word poetry, where like you're not there for that, but suddenly you're there for that, and you're like, hey, I like that, and you weren't expecting that. So it's kind of like left field, but it works, especially given that where you're doing it is in front of people who are there for other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you definitely tie it together, and I mean, again, you got me with 2 of them, so I mean, I'm a fan. I stayed for them anyway.
I hate to meet somebody's expectations. You know what I mean? Like, I hate for somebody to look and size me up and say, that's a white guy and he grew up in the South, and therefore he's going to believe this. He's going to enjoy this. I hate to meet those expectations. So if I can ever show up in a way that nobody can figure me out, it's a real delight to me. It also causes trouble, but it's a delight to me to show up with something that people go like, whoa, where did that come from?
But that's how we got to be friends, because we were sitting at a table and I just thought of you as the guy who was up on stage talking about Julius Caesar. And the next thing you know, we were joking about, I forgot what we were giggling about, but it was some funny stuff. And it was just like, oh man, he's the opposite of what I thought he was when I first saw him. So
I love that. That's a great compliment to me. For me, that's like the greatest compliment, that people say, well, you're not anything like I thought you would be. Yeah.
Yeah. You're a chameleon. You are. It's a good thing. Here's another one. What is one question you wish people would ask you, but they never seem to ask you?
So in business, I have this idea that there are probably 10 or 12 questions that we ought to be asking each other all the time. What I think, and look, this is how seriously I take this. I have this written on a card so that I remember it. I don't know if you can see that, but but I have this question written in front of me all day long. And it says, what would you do in my situation? Right? So I had 5 calls today. I asked that on every single one of those calls. And not once did someone tell me, I don't know, or I refuse to give you an answer. All 5 times, people told me what they would do in my situation, dealing with the decision that we were talking about at that moment. I think it is a superpower question. I can't take any credit for it because I picked it up from somebody else. But that's one of the things that I wish people would ask me all the time. Because as a consultant, when I'm consulting, I am telling them, what would you do in my situation? But if somebody asks you for that and then you answer it, they take the question, they take the answer a lot better than you probably meant it. So that's the first thing. There's another question that I keep in front of me as well, that I ask myself, and I don't do it nearly often enough. But I should ask myself more often, what would this look like if it was easy? Because what I find is I make things harder than they need to be. And if I just remember to ask myself, what would it look like if it was easy, and just really simplify the model, then the result is typically easier and better than when I don't ask that question.
I'm writing these down. So
yeah, these are good.
The question, the first one, what would you do in my situation? So I've heard that before, and it's usually when you're about to be punished for something. So how do you use it in a positive situation rather than a like bill collector situation or a?
So if you're getting into if you're getting into the real estate business and the wholesale business or the fix and flip business for the first time, right? You can go down that road and figure things out. People have done that. They've received no instruction. They just do what they think they need to do up front. Or you could find somebody who had done it before and say, here's the house that I bought. I'm going to do a fix and flip on this thing. What would you do in my situation? And they will tell you 3 things that save you tens of thousands of dollars, hours and hours of hard work, and let you get to the result that you're trying to get to without beating your head against the wall. But we are all so stubborn. We are all so ego-driven that we want all of our success to be only our success. We think that asking for advice and following it means that we have to give the credit of the success away. And we just have to mature past that. So that's a positive example of how you might do that.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So we're kind of wrapping this up. So what was the best piece of life advice you would give to other dad entrepreneurs? As far as like, you've met a lot of different type of people. I mean, a lot have come through your office, people that are looking to create wealth or even, save it. Others that might just be starting out, have no idea how to even delve into this, where they should start, what kind of entities. I mean, there's a lot of people that you've probably come across. Like, so picture a dad. Let's think somebody that you came across, in your VC capacity, right? He's got an idea. He doesn't have a lot of funds, but he's got this amazing idea. He's got 2 or 3 kids. He's working. He's, trying to put something together that it can provide for his family for generations. He's got this passion. He doesn't have all the pieces together, but he's seeking, good sound advice for a dad entrepreneur in his particular, situation at this point. What would you tell that guy, some sage piece of advice you would give him to make sure he stays on the right track and that he's, he stays focused on the right thing?
I think the advice is to take the risk, right? The safe path is always going to be available to us. It's always going to be there. There's my father-in-law is a great hero of mine, and he came up in the world, and his first job was sort of a maintenance janitor at a shirt factory. And he wanted to quit the job because somebody offered him a job in sales, and he came to his plant foreman, and the foreman said, "You're not smart enough to do that." And he went to his dad, and his dad said, "William, I'm pretty sure that there's always going to be a toilet that needs cleaning. Go try something else to see if you can do a little better. If you fail at it, you can always come back to the lowest possible job, that you have right now," right? That and since that point, he's never cleaned a toilet in his life. He's worth multiple millions of dollars, all self-made. People adore him. He has the best of everything. He gives more than anybody else I know. But if his dad hadn't told him, go take the risk that's most important for you to take, I don't think he would have made anything out of himself like he has now. So I think it's important for us to take the risk, because what we think of as the downside is never as bad as we think of it as. We have a harder time visioning the upside than we do the downside. We can get the downside in great detail in a second, and it's very unrealistic. The upside, even if you shoot for it and you don't hit exactly what you think, if you get halfway there, you're still in a much better situation than you're in right now.
I hate, like, one of what you just said, the risk part. You ever see that meme where it's the Asian dude from what is it, The Hangover, and it says, "But did you die?" It's like that. It's like that's what I say that sometimes to people. It's kind of like, well, and it's like, but did you die? No, then you're still here. You can still fight your way out of this particular problem. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, you lost some money. Yeah, it sucks. 25 grand is a lot of money, but like, you can go make more. You just have to, you learned, right? You know not to do that again.
If you point people to the best decision they ever made, it's always something that they consider to be risky, right? So you got a hot wife. I've seen her. I saw the white party that you did for her birthday, that kind of stuff. That first time you shot the shot, right, to talk to her and that's the best decision you ever made. It's a risky decision, right? But the upside is unfathomable. And the downside was that she was going to tell you no and tell your friends that you were ugly, right? Or whatever it happened to be. The downside is nothing compared to what the upside can be. And I don't think that we think about that in the right way. I think that, as a matter of fact, there's one thing a human brain can't do, and it is accurately factor risk. We have no idea. And we overreact to what we think the downside is, and we completely misfigure the upside.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have a great imagination, and I do take way more risk than I should, but it's led to an interesting life. So I can't argue with that at all. And I'm happy where I'm at. I could, how they say, you could always have more, but sometimes more is just more. Like, it's just more stuff. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
You gotta be.
Yeah, exactly. How many yachts can you water ski behind, right? That's what Gordon Gekko, that's what they asked Gordon Gekko. How many yachts can you water ski behind? And it's not necessarily about that. Abraham Maslow said, what a man can be, he must be. And that sticks with me all the time. I'm sitting here thinking, the process of writing a book is a pain. There's not any joy in writing the book, none. The joy comes after you've written the book and some human says, good book. And I don't even care if they're telling me the truth or not, right? That's the only joy that comes from that process. But I've got another book in me. So I'm going to go through that hardship and write 1, 2, 3, 4 more books to get them out because I want that to be my truth in the world.
Those are your babies. You said you didn't want to have 2 more.
I'll take that. Yeah, I'll adopt those babies, right?
Yeah. All right. I got you now. I feel you. So listen, you know what time it is. We're winding down. You got that dad joke, son. You got that.
This is a stressful question. You should not even ask me this up front. So I was let me give you a little background. I was in the airport in Atlanta one time. I was waiting on my bags to come off the little carousel. And this 4-year-old kid is standing next to me. And he yanks on my jacket and he says, "What'd the farmer say when he lost his tractor?" And I'm looking around. I have no idea what the answer could be. And I look at his mom, and his mom's dying of embarrassment. And he says, "Where's my tractor?" I like it. And my kids hate it, which is the real measure of a dad joke, right? That's the quality of the dad joke is a measure of how much your kid's grown about it.
Yeah, there's these levels to the dad jokes. There's the ones that make you only laugh. There's the groaners. I'm going to tell you something. I had a bad dad joke day the other day. None of them were working. I was knocking on the refrigerator door, and I was waiting for somebody to ask me why I was knocking so that I could be like, just to see if to check if the salad was dressing. But nobody asked.
Nobody fell for it?
Nobody fell for it. And then there was another one too. I try to get my son with the up dad joke, hey, don't forget the up dad. I was waiting for what's up. He said something and he messed it all up. And then I told him what he messed up, and he's giggling that he messed it up. So yeah, I mean, sometimes the attempts just fall lame, but you gotta keep going. You gotta, because some of
It's
them.
a real thing though, right? I used to think my dad was completely stupid for wasting his mental capacity on telling a dad joke. But the level of delight, if I were Seinfeld in front of 90,000 people and told a killer joke, I would not get the same amount of satisfaction as I do telling a dad joke to my kids and hearing them
Yes,
groan. And
they're your
yeah,
hardest audience, and if you can make one of them giggle, you've done it. Like,
yeah,
who cares about the rest? Nobody pays for these tickets like they do. So
yeah. My son's into Rick rolling now. You remember this from the thing?
hey, you know what? Here's a suggestion for him, right?
Yeah.
Tell him to buy a megaphone or get one or borrow one, and go through the neighborhood and scream out, Alexa, play Together Forever real loud, and see how many people's Alexas start to play.
That's good. That's good. So I'm going to get a QR code printed on a t-shirt that he can wear to camp and let the kids take a thing. And then the Rick roll video will come up. I'm going to do that. And then we were playing we had to wait at the doctor's office the other day. We're playing Hangman, and I Rick rolled him on the Hangman. And it was the greatest dad moment in the world. Like he was so
Together Forever.
I just Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh.
Right. And he got through it, and he was thinking that he couldn't get it. And then the music clicked in his head, and he was just mortified. He was so angry, and, he was so gotten that there was nothing he could do about it. And he just thought that was dynamite,
And one day he'll see this and he'll be like, man, I can't believe my dad shared that. The embarrassing moment.
That's right. That's true. He will.
One last thing, because I know this is going to be a good one for you. I'm excited to hear what you might think. Sometimes people surprise me. What do you want to? How do you want to leave your mark in the world?
Probably two different ways. One, I want my family to live at that next level that my dad was able to give me. So dad moved us up a level. I want my kids to move up a level. So I don't want my kids to ever have to do anything for a job. I want them to have the ability to pursue their passions and never have money to be a barrier to doing that. So that's the mark that I want to leave for my family. For my public life, they call it the public intellectual. Like, what are you contributing to the conversation? I want people to understand that we each carry individual identities, and the way that we relate to each other is through identity. It isn't through intellect, and it isn't through emotion. And so the more I can pour into someone else's identity, the better I can understand them, and the better they can understand me, the better person they become, and the better person I become.
Well, for that, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have to getting very clear about someone's identity these days is a whole new game,
Yeah.
And, if you write a book on that, I'm going to read that one. Cause I mean, I'm kind of befuddled with how to answer some of this stuff. I'm an easygoing person, but I guess you could say what God's, desire for you and your identity with him, and what other people just want to push on you and press upon you, or you just get lost in the idea that where is your identity? Like, that's such a big struggle these days. And I mean,
it's a thorny thing for us.
Yeah.
It is. So guys my age, and you're roughly my age, you're younger than I am, but this is something that we struggle with. Like, how do we talk about these things? Well, you look a lot younger than I am. How do we talk about these things? And, none of us want to go out there and be unkind to anybody who has a different view of themselves or anything like that. We've grown up in times where we saw that was a socially acceptable thing, and we're not part of that. We don't want that. At the same time, where does it stop? This idea that I can simply try on identities as I feel like I should, and those kinds of things, it makes it almost unworkable to have a relationship with somebody who does that. So, and I think this is important. I think we're all scared to death of having the conversation, but I think it's important. These things are fluid. Throughout history, we have had conversations about things that we are all uncomfortable about. And having the conversation is a mark of a healthy relationship. Refusing to have the conversation is the mark of a diseased relationship. And so it is a really hard thing to do. But I think that we have to do that when and where we can, not to try to change someone, but to try to understand where they're coming from. It's a big belief of mine. And I struggle with the same thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, one of my things is this, I guess we don't want to go down too far down the road, but I don't have to understand everything to accept it. Like, I mean, we know gravity, but we don't have to necessarily know everything about it just to know that if you throw something, it's going to probably fall down, right? So
Right.
how it works, if it works all the time, if there are exceptions to the rule, yeah, I mean, it depends where you're at, if you're in space, all these other things. But the point is, generally speaking, I don't need to understand all of it just to know the effect of what it is, what's going to happen, right? So inside of that, I'm able to accept other people and what they're telling me. I get caught up if like they're just not, if there's no I guess equal exchange of acceptance. Like
Exactly right.
if I can accept that I don't need to understand you completely to love you or treat you respect or anything like that, then why is it so hard for you to do that back? You don't understand why I can't believe that it's like, you don't need to understand it. You just need to, like, if I can accept your side, you should be able to accept my side, and then we can still converse or have a relationship.
Exactly right. The thing for me is it's the balance between love and change, right? When I come to you and I say I have the choice either to love you or to change you, which of those would it's when you articulate it like that, there's no choice. I'm going to love you, period. I'm not going to try to change you. I'm not going to do that kind of thing, right? I may not choose to be in relationship with you in the same way, but I'm not going to try to change somebody to fit what I want them to be. I'm going to love and accept them for what they need to be. And this is in my family. It's in my workplace. It's when in every relationship that I have I'm just not going to be around people that I can't love. And so I'm going to love as much as I can.
All you need is love, right?
That's it, baby.
Well, that was definitely a cool way to end this bad boy. Usually it's a dad joke, but love is good too. So listen, my man, I appreciate you for showing up, sharing with us. Definitely have fun on this one, and I can't wait to see you again. And hopefully this time, if you give me enough notice, I'll bring the coquito this time. So
yeah, please do that, because I totally messed that up last time. I really should have thought about that. I'm dying to have this.
I should have remembered it too, but I forgot. So yeah. All right, man. Appreciate you, man. And like anybody who wants to connect with Trey, let me make sure I got this right. TrinityBlue.com, Trinity-Blue.com. Is this the insurance or the family office?
That's the consulting. Yeah, the family office is called Threadneedle. There's not anything, there's a website, but there's nothing for anybody to really look at. Trinity Blue is where you can find me. A CEO Only Does Three Things is the book. It's also the website at CEO Only Does Three Things.com. You can get a copy of the book there. You can find it on Amazon as well. And love to have conversations with people. So buy the book, give a review, tell me why you like it, tell me why you didn't like it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, and you should follow him on Facebook too, because he's got some funny memes, deceptively sneaky, funny kind of stuff that goes out there, and a little bit of politics, but we'll leave that alone.
A lot of politics for me.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you having me, man. Good to chat with you tonight.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's do it. Hold on 1 second. Let's go. All right. All right, guys, I'm a little bit slow today, but that's okay. I don't know. Energy's low, but my man, he keeps me up right now. So end of the show, as always, every week, I like to offer you guys something. I know we talked about this before, but big things happening with the Mastermind program. I'm actually sort of joining forces with someone else. And so we have a mastermind that we offer to our anybody who's in business, dad entrepreneurs, or just any business entrepreneurs. We have guys with gyms, with real estate businesses, Amazon businesses, people who are looking to expand, actually nonprofits and things like that. So we have a diverse kind of crowd there to help you in your business if you're interested in a mastermind of that sort. If you want to participate and see what's going on in the mastermind, we have an opportunity for someone to come in and just sit in and get on the we call it the hot seat, where you can ask some questions. And if you want to be entered in a chance for that, you can text the word Mastermind to 305-602-3632 for a chance to win a hot seat at our next Tuesday Make Money and Have Fun Mastermind meeting, which goes on right before this show. So that's the opportunity for that as well. Also, we also have, let me see, you want to be on the show. So I know that there's other dad entrepreneurs out there that watch the show. If you happen to be one of them, I'm looking for more guests that are interesting, that are dads that are maybe struggling with business now. You don't always have to be a success. Sometimes I want to talk to people about, like, you know, how the journey is. You know, it's always nice to have some big name brand person. I mean, you know, Trey's actually kind of a pretty popular person. Like I said, he's famous in some pretty important circles, but there's always the little guy. Maybe he's the contractor just starting his business, but he's got an interesting side hustle. Maybe he's a comedian. I don't know. He could be a musician. There's all sorts of dads on the spectrum, let's just say. So if you're a dad entrepreneur making your way up, I would like to interview you for my show, because just because you're not there yet doesn't mean you're not going to get there. And you might have something for other people who are on their journey as well, that you use some technology, some insight that they can use to also be better dads for their family. So if you feel like you have something valuable to share, and I think everybody actually does, feel free to reach out to me. You could text the word dad show to 305-602-3632, and that'll get you started in the process. Also, if you know someone like that, maybe a father figure, somebody in your life that might be perfect for a show like this. I mean, you know, especially if they got dad jokes, definitely tell them to come my way. Definitely want to see about interviewing some of these guys. So I guess that would be it for this week. That's all I got to say. Yeah, it was a real pleasure this week. I think that's a wrap. So for all you dads, entrepreneurs, and other sexy people still up in here, if you like what you heard, then don't forget 9 p.m. next week to tune in and turn up with the dad next door. Take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you on the next one. Daddy out.